Thank you for taking a look at this video from Excel Communications. It will be a quick overview of the login screen for ZAC, which stands for Zultys Advanced Communicator. We'll go over what the icons are inside the application, what they do, and we'll do a series of short videos so it's not so long and boring, and you can jump right to what you're trying to find. So on your desktop, you should have a ZAC icon, which you'll click to open up this window. Your login name, the password, and the host will be provided to you by the system administrator. Once you enter this information in, you can slide this wheel to the right to remember password, so you have to keep entering this password in, or move it back to the left if you're security conscious and you don't have a problem with entering the password in. That's a preference. Use Windows credentials would be if the company purchased LDAP integration. That would actually allow you to use your network login credentials to log into ZAC. Once that information's provided, you'll click Login to launch ZAC. ZAC will actually open up in the mode that you actually closed it. There are two modes for ZAC. One is a compact and one is a full screen mode. If you hover your mouse over these two arrows in the top left corner, it'll tell you with the arrows pointing out means that I could switch to full screen mode, and I am in compact mode. If I click it, it will switch to full screen mode, and the windows can be expanded or shortened in either one of those, depending on your liking. There is no right or wrong for this. I only use the expanded mode pretty much just to drag and drop calls, which we'll go over in another video. I prefer to keep mine in compact mode for no other reason than just the size and compactness of the application on my desktop. So the icons working down the left side, whether it's in compact mode or expanded mode, are always going to be on the left-hand side. If I click on the recent icon, I'm going to get three tabs: all, calls, and messages. All will be a combination of my calls and my messages. Calls will be just my calls. Messages would be my instant messages. If I click the call log button, that would actually give me all my calls, inbound, outbound, missed calls that went to voicemail. That would be color-coded for the direction of the call and whether it went to voicemail. The buddies list is something that you'll use often. This is for users. It can either be all the users on the system if you choose to, or just the users that you call all the time, so you can see what status they're in as far as their presence or any messages that they may have left in their present status. Speed dials that are personal for yourself, and then you can actually group the speed dials and or the users into folders so that you can expand them or collapse them depending on what your view is. The dial pad is simply a dial pad to make calls. You can use this dial pad right here by clicking on the numbers, or you can click in type number and then just use your keyboard to key in a number and hit the enter key to dial it, or click on this phone to send a call. Either way. Groups in ZAC are for chat. So the My is going to be your instant messages with any user on the system. They'll be stored under My, and then you can create group chats, which can be labeled as private or public. Private groups, once they're created, only the host can add people to it or delete people from it. Users that are on the Media Exchange Unified Communication Server can't add themselves to a private group. If they go to add to a group, anything that's been published as public will be available for any user on the system to be able to go ahead and join. Voicemail, when you click on the voicemail icon, you'll have three tabs. You'll have your inbox, your recorded calls, and deleted items. So your inbox will contain voicemails that you received or have been forwarded, and the messages that have been marked as unread will be in red, and that will keep your message waiting light on your telephone flashing until you've marked all of your messages as read. Then that light will be extinguished. If you have call recording licenses, any recordings that you did from your user account within ZAC would be stored here, and then any messages you deleted from your inbox or your call recordings would end up in the deleted folder. And if you belong to a group and you have a message waiting light, but you have no messages in your inbox, you need to use this drop down and click on the group that you belong to check that group's inbox to see if there are some new messages in there that would activate your message waiting light. Again, you have two groups, two options once you're in voicemail, or multiple depending on how many groups you're in, but just make sure you check all the groups to see whether or not you have voicemail in the other groups if you don't have any yourself. Contacts, the MX is the media exchange unified communication server platform, so all of the users that are built in the system, all the groups, all the dialable codes are going to be listed under the MX, and you can sort them by first name, last name, or by their presence. If you click on the imported, that would actually be the integration with Microsoft Contacts, and it is not really an import, it's a share, and it only shares those contacts with this user. So nobody else on the system is looking at your contacts unless they're logged in as you. A lot of people worry about who's looking at those. Faxes, you can send and receive faxes from ZAC. Same thing applies. You'll have an inbox and a sent and a deleted folder. Inbox is going to show you the faxes that you received that were forwarded. The sent is going to be your fax confirmation page, whether it was successful or had errors. You'll have those confirmations here. The errors would show up in red. Anything you delete from the inbox or the sent would end up in your deleted folder. And again, just like the voicemail, you have faxes that would come to your user account or the group that you belong to, so you'd have to check both. Conferences, you'd schedule conferences here. If you click the schedule, you'll actually create a conference that you can email out to the participants based on the user licenses in the system, is the capacity level and room participant that you can have. So that would be a system administrator information that would be delivered to you as far as how many participants you can have. Web conference is actually another server for you to do web interface in conjunction with the audio conference. So you can do desktop share. You can record that web session. It's actually pretty robust. So it's either going to be an audio conference under the schedule or a web conference, which is going to be a web collaboration with document file share, desktop share. People can take over your computer or vice versa. You can take over theirs, they can take over yours. The park icon is actually going to be calls that get parked in the system. Basically, if you are on the phone and you put the call on hold, that call is on hold on your phone and only you can retrieve it. If you need to put the call on hold to get it to some other user on the system, you would need to park the call, and that would be in the call session window while you're on the call, or you can push the park button on the phone. Once you do that, they're going to show up here, and they're going to be sorted by park ID, and then in that call, you'll see the user that parked the call, the caller ID information for the person that called, and how long they've been in the park orbit waiting to be retrieved. The agent role, basically, if you're in a group, just shows you the status of the other members of the group, whether they're on the phone, they're logged in, or what they're doing. So that'll just give you what your coworkers are doing within your group. The location at the bottom, if you click that, you need to make sure that you are clicked in the right location that you're at. So depending on where you're at, and you pick up that phone and dial 911, the emergency vehicles will go to the dispatch location of the site that you selected. So please make sure that you selected the correct location. The bind to at the bottom, basically any phone that's assigned to your user account in programming will always ring when your extension is dialed. And usually this bind to wouldn't be bind to, it would actually be bound to your phone. And for that feature, we call that binding or bound to. It's just basically saying that I'm using this application with this device on my desk. Up above, if you click on your initials, it's basically first initial, last name, ZAC Training, ZT. If I click on that, I can add any additional information for myself, my mobile if it's not already there, my home number, my email address, and I could also upload a photo of myself so people can put a face to the name. A lot of remote workers, sometimes they never see anybody, but this is a way to put a name to the face. The active role, basically any group that you're in or yourself, if you click on the name here, you're actually able to switch from one to the other. And so if I go back to ZAC Training, which is my user account, I may have a caller ID, which could be my direct dial number that would be sent out when I'm making calls for the person that I'm calling to see. And if I want them, if I'm calling from a group and I select that group could potentially send out a different caller ID so that when I place this call, they'll see the caller ID so that when they call back, the call comes back to the group and not to me individually. So changing this active role will change the caller ID that's exuded out to the general public. The group presence, if I want to be in wrap-up after I've hung up a call, I would go into wrap-up mode, which is typically 30 seconds. The other users in the group would see that I'm in a wrap-up mode. They'll see that indicated there. If I make myself not available, they'll see that I'm not available. So this is all reported on, so be careful how you set your presence in the group. If you should be taking calls, you should be available. If I click the green icon up here for my user presence, I have the ability to change from available to not available to busy, at lunch, in a meeting, be right back, or appear offline. So if I change my presence to at lunch, a little coffee cup, you'll notice as soon as I change that, my group presence is not available because I've changed my role, means I'm not at my desk, so I shouldn't take calls for the group. I can at the same time click on that at lunch and change the note to let everybody know that I'll be back at 2 after I'm done with lunch, and hit the return key for that message to be stored. Once I return back from lunch, I click my presence icon and make myself available again. I click X on my note to get rid of it, and I hit the return key to remove it. The dial pad to the right, I can use that to make a call. I can key in the number from my dial pad if I want to, and I can hit the enter key to place that call, or click this green phone icon to place that call. 3 dots to the far right. If I click on that, I can actually click the About, which will give me the version of ZAC that I'm running. If I click on the settings, I would be able to make some setting changes within the application, and log out and exit would allow me to shut down ZAC altogether and log out of the system. So that's the basics of ZAC, logging in, the icons, what they do, what they represent. So we appreciate you watching, and we'll follow up some videos about how ZAC functions with further videos. Thanks.